everyone. My name is William Wang, and I am here today with David Shorey, the director of the Tri-City Fencing Academy. And so, David, we all know about sports like basketball or soccer, right? But when people search about fencing, right, oftentimes they see, a result that comes up like Home Depot, the fencing that you see in the yard. So, what makes a fencer, and what does it take for you to be a successful fencer?
Well, when I think about the history of the sport of fencing, I think about how long we as humans have had this innate desire to hit someone else with a stick, right?
Sure.
Goes back a long, long ways. And eventually, one got tired of being hit with another person's stick, so learned to defend himself with the stick. Really, the sport just descended from that and became a little bit more refined over the years. So
Nice.
I would say that what makes a fencer is the innate desire to hit someone else with a stick without being hit oneself.
Right. So I remember, when I started fencing, I got into fencing because of Star Wars.
Right.
Actually, everybody likes lightsabers. Everybody likes slicing. It looks cool, right? It looks cool. That's what makes, fencing exciting to start, because you have the chance to hit someone, to stab someone. Right?
Exactly. I mean, that's what drew me to the sport, I'd say, as well.
Yeah. So I heard that you got attracted by a fencing excerpt from a science fiction novel or something.
Absolutely. I'm happy to elaborate a little bit on that. When I was 12, I read a book called Fool's Company by Robert Aspirin. It was a wonderful book about a group of misfits and criminals in a military section competing against an elite unit. And they competed against each other in a variety of different competitions, but the final competition that they had was fencing. Now, at the time, I had no idea about the sport. I didn't know if this was a thing that was done, but with some Google searching, eventually I found a fencing club and started on my journey.
I see. Okay. So David, for the next point, how did you start fencing? So you mentioned a bit how you got drawn into the sport, but what has fencing brought to you since you started?
So after searching it up and after finding a club for me to get my start, I fell in love with the sport. I had the opportunity to compete at provincials very, very early on. It was about a month after I started fencing that I was kind of thrown in the deep end there. And I did quite well. And I was really happy with how I did, but I fell just shy of getting a medal. And I really, really wanted a medal. So I decided that I was going to take it a little bit more seriously, start fencing a few more days of the week. And before I knew it, I was going to nationals. And before I knew it, I had won nationals. And that led me kind of on my career as a fencer, traveling around, seeing Canada, the States, doing World Cups in Italy, Sweden, and the World University Championships in Russia. It's been a ride. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, fencing does take you to a lot of places, both, I guess, on the emotional side, but also physically, right? You get to visit all these places if you compete in these competitions nationally and also internationally. Yeah, but that's what makes fencing, I guess, exciting, I feel like.
Yeah, the opportunity to do all of that, and the fact that you don't have to start as a small child to have a hope of being able to compete in fencing. A lot of hockey players, if you haven't started playing hockey by the time you're 5 or 6, you're not going to make the big leagues. Fencing is a solid enough sport that you have the opportunity to really excel as long as you're passionate enough about it and you want to do it. You can go get it done.
Okay, so David, this brings us to our next point, right? So what is the Tri-City Fencing Academy? So I see on your shirt you have the logo, right? So what is TFA and what does TFA do?
Well, Tri-City Fencing Academy is a club for those who want to fence. It specializes in foil and épée, and it runs a variety of programs through rec centers and through our newest rental, where we're starting to build a competitive program.
Okay, so that's where we're close to today. That's
that's here.
Okay, I see. So how as a fencer, what are sort of as hockey, there's probably ice rinks. Soccer, there's a field. What about fencing? What do fencers compete on?
Well, fencers compete wherever they can find room, I suppose.
Right.
Typically, this would be in gyms, any open space that's available. I've run programs on tracks outdoors, desperate times sometimes, but we don't really have a stadium that we play in. We've got the strip that we fence on. It's 2 meters wide and 14 meters long. But other than that, fencing can take place just about anywhere, I'd say.
Just about anywhere. So that could be like your basement, your garden, even like right the gym, right? So obviously, I feel like fencing is quite versatile as a sport. Well, most sports are, I guess, versatile, right? Soccer you can play anywhere if you have a ball. But fencing, right? Fencing is such a, I guess, it's a niche sport to the fact that not a lot of people know about it, right? Whereas soccer, a lot of people might know about it. So why is fencing, I guess, not as well known?
I think a lot of it's the marketing, and a lot of it is the fact that it's harder to follow visually. I enjoy the sport of fencing. I love the sport of fencing, but I also wouldn't necessarily watch it on TV. A lot of the intricacies are hard to pick up on. It's just not as much of a spectator sport as a lot of the other ones are. Soccer's much easier to follow than fencing.
Right. See, because like when the swords, they cross, like the blade work, it's often a bit harder to follow.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, David, if I'm interested in fencing and Tri-City Fencing Academy, what are sort of the programs we offer? You mentioned this in your previous point, but what are sort of the programs that we have with the age groups that we specialize in?
So we've got a children's program that works with 6 to 8-year-olds, teaching them just the basics of how to move safely with the blade, some simple exercises. The core of our program, I'd say, is our youth programming, aged 9 to 15. That's where most of our fencers start, and that's where most of our programs are. We also have an adult program for those 16 plus, and a senior program for those 55 plus. So
I see.
we serve a variety of ages through many different rec centers throughout the Tri-Cities.
I see. So David, I just want to touch on the point where you mentioned how, there's some fencers that start 6 to 8, right?
Yes.
And then there's some fencers that's much older, like the seniors, right? So that shows that, fencing could be like for any age, you could still do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mom has just recently started fencing, and that was one I didn't really see coming, but I'm thrilled to have her on board. And she's certainly getting up there in the years.
Yeah. See, like fencing, I guess, and all you need is a sword, and then you have the innate, the desire to hit people.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's quite nice. So David, what are the tournaments that TFA does right now?
Tri-City Fencing's foundation, so its nonprofit partner, has been hosting a variety of tournaments in Pitt Meadows in some of the space that it's rented. I believe Brad, the person running it, is shooting for 3 or 4 a year. We're just getting into the swing of things. We've been operating this capacity for about 8 months now.
8 months.
But we'll be hosting several tournaments a year out in Pitt Meadows, so looking forward to that in the new season.
Yeah, and I last month I actually competed in TFA's tournament, and I ended up getting a medal. But what's really cool to me is that when I'm fencing, I get to meet all of these people from other clubs, and that's really what I didn't expect in fencing. I guess like the camaraderie, even between rivalries and competitors. I guess that's really nice because they're obviously competitors, but they're also friends as well.
It's a small world and it's a small pool of fencers, so you kind of have to be nice to people.
Yeah,
otherwise,
I guess
you're going to run into them because there are only so many of us and only so many clubs.
Yeah, but I think that draws in our conversation. But if I want to get started in TFA, what is our site that you use?
Well, we have a website, if that's what you're asking about.
Yeah.
tricityfencing.com. Okay. You'll be able to find us on Facebook, Instagram, Google. We can be found there, and we can be found in all the rec center guides too. So if you find your local rec center, odds are, if you're in the Tri-Cities, there will be a fencing program there running beginner and intermediate classes.
I see. Well, we hope to see you there. The fencing, like we have training probably, I think every single day of the week.
We've got beginner classes Monday to Friday, and we have the advanced classes here in Montgomery Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay, I see. Yeah, Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of times that you can go fencing. I guess per week, the weekly commitment does vary from fencer to fencer.
Absolutely, everyone wants different things. Some people are fencing casually 1 or 2 days a week, but some people really want to go to nationals and win. And for that, they need to train a little bit more often.
Yeah, I see. Well, David, thank you for joining me on this conversation.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Happy to share the sport that I love.
Thank you. And I hope, like, Tri-City fencing grows and has a very, very bright future ahead with much more people, from our local communities joining in and having the fun of fencing, which we all love.
Oh, I'm sure it will. We've got some good young instructors coming up, and I think they're going to be the big difference makers for us here.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David.
My pleasure.
See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.